Hello viewer, good to have you on the program Back to Farm. My name remains Joshua Ishaya. You can call me your farm guide any day, anytime. Agriculture, they say, is the production of crops and animals, useful to man and industry. Today, the program Back to Farm will be talking about growing early maturing and stress-resistant potatoes. Stay tuned and have a look.
Potato cultivars are classified as early, mid, or late maturing based on their maturity period. Early maturing varieties complete their life cycle in 70 to 80 days in subtropical climates and 90 to 100 days in temperate climates, whereas 95 to 110 and 120 to 135 days are required for the mid and late maturing varieties, respectively. Despite the large number of cultivars currently available, there is still a need to develop early maturing cultivars. Earliness gives the flexibility to include a potato crop in a cropping system and also avoid certain biotic and abiotic stresses that occur late in the season. Early maturing varieties also allow uniform distribution of potato production by staggering harvests. Early maturing varieties also allow uniform distribution of potato production by staggering harvesting periods over a longer period. Breeding for earliness and stress resistance started at International Potato Center (CIP) in 1974 with the aim of extending potato cultivation to the developing world and with its warm, humid, and arid environments. Breeding for earliness is worthwhile in the current conditions of global climate change, as the potato is basically a crop of cool and moderate temperatures. The dramatic changes in weather conditions caused by the climate change have challenged potato cultivation with heat and drought stress. These stresses can affect plant development and lead to dramatic yield losses, especially at critical stages in the life cycle, such as plant emergence and tuberization. The effect of climate change on potato production is greater than the effect on cereals, and a 10 to 16% decline in production has been estimated due to the effects of global climate change in India alone. Potato crops regularly suffer from drought stress in rain-filled growing regions due to erratic rainfall or inadequate supplemental irrigation. This can be clearly seen in China, which be experienced. Potatoes are increasingly being grown in tropical and subtropical areas as a winter crop and are therefore experiencing drought stress. The severity and duration of water scarcity vary from year to year, making it difficult for plants to adapt. Heat stress is another major constraint affecting potato tuberization and yield. Levy and Velox, 2007. It affects sprouting and tuber initiation and development, thereby reducing the crop's yield potential. In developing countries, most potato cultivation is in rainy hilly areas of varying altitudes with cool and mild climates. Global warming is expected to cause a 4 to 5 degrees centigrade increase in temperature, and this would have a tremendous effect on potato cultivation. It would disrupt tuberization, extend the growing period, and increase susceptibility to major pests and diseases. Irregular rainfall is also creating drought-like conditions and affecting potato production. All the existing cultivars suffer significant yield loss in these conditions and have to be replaced with cultivars with fewer growing days and better tolerance to abiotic and biotic stresses. Early maturing varieties could be a solution for food and nutritional security in Asian countries, which have cereal-based cropping systems and face a tremendous food security challenge to feed their 4 to 5 billion people. Asian economies and farming systems are linked to a small number of cereals, mainly rice and wheat. Over-intensification from monocropping with cereals, extremes of global climate change in terms of frequent droughts and flooding, and urbanization have degraded arable land, ultimately leading to lower yields. Cereal-based diets are vulnerable to low conditions of micronutrients, causing high rates of malnutrition in women and children. This has created a serious threat to the food and nutritional security of the region. Early maturing potato varieties with resistance to major biotic and abiotic stresses and good processing quality are a valid alternative to cereal-based monocropping farming systems. Their short growing period enables these varieties to be cultivated between two consecutive wheat crops, creating huge opportunities for potato cultivation in Asian countries. Plant development depends on temperature, and plants require a specific amount of heat to develop from one point in their life cycle to another, such as seeding to harvesting. The growth cycle can be roughly divided into 5 stages in potatoes: sprout development, vegetative growth, tuber initiation, tuber bulking, and maturation. Tuber bulking and maturation. The accumulation of growing degrees days. The accumulation of growing degree days and phototerminal units for each developmental stage is relatively constant and independent of sowing date, but crop variety may affect it considerably. 3 maturity groups in the potato. These are early 90 days, medium 91 to 110 days, and late maturity 111 to 130 days, based on tuber maturity. Developing early maturing potato varieties is of the utmost importance in the current situation, and it mainly depends on selecting breeding material with the early tuber bulking trait, as well as high dry matter partitioning capacity. Early tuber initiation and subsequent dry matter partitioning to the tubers lead to early maturing crops. Tolerance to major biotic and abiotic stresses should also be considered because these varieties are grown in different agroecological zones. Drought and heat stresses are the major abiotic stresses encountered by early maturing potato varieties, depending on the agroecological zones of cultivation. The Asian Pacific (AP) region of the world plays a vital role in potato production, mainly China in Southeast Asia and India in Southwest Asia. Although rice is the basic staple food in most AP countries, potato is considered another important staple in this region. Differences between the agroecological zones in this area are the main constraint on productivity. Differences between the agroecological zones in this area are the major constraints on productivity. Northern China has long days and dry, flat land, while short day, humid mountain environments prevail in South and Southeast Asia. Potato production systems in Asia have been classified into 4 types according to the latitude of the region: the single cropping system, northern latitudes; double cropping system, central China; and mixed cropping system, southwest China; and the winter cropping system, extreme south of China, Indo-Gangetic Plain, Bangladesh, and northern Vietnam. Of these, cultivation of potatoes as a winter crop is the most common in the extreme south of China, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, Bangladesh, and northern Vietnam, where potatoes are planted in the winter between 2 crops of rice. When grown in this way, it is reasonably likely that the potato crop will experience drought stress, so it is advisable to use a variety with a short growing period and good tolerance to drought so that it can be grown using the residual moisture accumulated during the monsoon season. Screening genotypes for drought resistance is based on a comparison of the drought tolerance index and harvest index, which refers to the weight of the tubers compared to the rest of the plant for each genotype. Many CIP bred clones do not produce well in the Central Asia summer, but some virus-resistant genotypes, especially SANAV, show adaptation to temperature and drought conditions. Similarly, CIP clones were screened for drought tolerance in arid areas of India, and CIP clone CIP 397006.18 were promising based on its overall yield performance, drought tolerance, and acceptability of texture and taste. These kinds of genotypes, which are resistant to drought and viruses, can be used to breed for early maturing varieties. The broad genetic base of these genotypes will adapt to hot and subtropical climates and may be resistant to major biotic stresses. Furthermore, late blight as a biotic stress is the most devastating potato disease, and its occurrence is largely dependent on favorable climate changes, so resistance to late blight should be considered a high priority along with the other characteristics above when selecting parents for earliness. Traits to be selected when breeding maturing varieties are tuber initiation, percent tuberization, foliage senescence, bulking rate, average weight per tuber, and average tuber yield per plant, which need to be evaluated at 30, 60, and 39 days after planting or transplanting to the field. On the basis of the general combining ability and heritability of the parental material, parents must be selected for the breeding program. Tuber initiation data can be recorded by visual observation of swollen stolons or tubers on representative plants uprooted from the breeding plot. Percent tuberization is estimated by counting the number of plants with tubers and dividing by the total number of plants. Similarly, other tuber-related traits like average weight per tuber, average tuber yield per plant, and bulking rate can be calculated by recording the total tuber weight over the growing period. Selecting for earliness and tolerance to major stresses is a complex process and requires the interaction of several key pathways for normal plant development. Screening genotypes on morphological traits alone is insufficient, and other screening methods, such as metabolite profiling, are required. Metabolite profiling genotypes under a combination of stresses will help identify the metabolic signature involved in multi-pathway adaptation to these kinds of stresses. A similar approach was successfully used by Draper et al. The metabolites identified have revealed a strong link with physiological responses in 3 different plant tissues: leaf, root, and tuber, in 5 different potato genotypes, varying in susceptibility, tolerance to drought. The metabolite results depicted different responses by the 3 plant tissues to the water deficit, resulting either in different levels of the metabolites detected or different metabolites expressed. Furthermore, genetic aspects of earliness and breeding strategy, photoperiods, and temperature are the basis for earliness in potatoes. Results show that long day reaction for tuberization is recessive to short day reaction. Potato varieties differ in their critical photoperiod requirement, and each genotype has its own CPP. Tuberization is favored by photoperiods shorter than the CPP for the genotype. Both Solanum tuberosum SSP and Digenia and wild species S. demison, cultivated in the Andes and Mexico respectively, require short days for tuberization. A succession of SDs is usually required for tuber induction, so the term inductive SDs is more accurate. It is not day length, but the duration of an uninterrupted dark period that is critical for tuberization. In contrast, exposure to non-inducive LDs impedes tuberization and may actually promote development of above ground stolons and their growth as normal aerial shoots. Varieties of group Andigena cultivated at high altitudes typically have a CPP of only 12 to 13 hours, while Grow tuberosum varieties have undergone centuries of selection for a CPP of 15 hours or more. The physiological mechanism for earliness is governed by early tuberization and subsequent early dry matter partitioning. Photoperiod and temperature are 2 important factors affecting these traits and ultimately the earliness of the crop. Selection of elite germplasm is a key step in a successful breeding program. Breeding for early maturing potatoes requires parent material with early tuberization and high dry matter partitioning efficiency. In addition, germplasm with heritability for percent tuberization at 30 days of harvest, foliage senescence at 60 and 90 days, and speed of bulking at 30, 60, and 90 days should be selected as parent material when breeding for earliness in potatoes. Previous results show that selection of parent material for earliness has permitted a number of clones to be identified that can transmit these traits to their progenies. The general methodology for breeding early maturing potato varieties involves DLL crossing without reciprocals. The general methodology for breeding early maturing potato varieties involves DLL crossing without reciprocals of early maturing and medium to late maturing clones, followed by evaluation of progenies for tuber initiation in a greenhouse. The progenies are evaluated in the field for tuber initiation and harvest at 30, 60, and 90 days after transplanting to the field. The tubers obtained from the 90-day harvest are then used for the replicated field evaluation of tuber initiation. In replicated field trials, tubers should be harvested at 30, 60, and 90 days. General combining ability is estimated for tuber initiation, percent tuberization, foliage senescence, average weight per. General combining ability is estimated for tuber initiation, percent tuberization, foliage senescence, average weight per tuber, and average tuber weight per plant for the seedlings and clones. Similarly, the narrow sense heritability should be estimated for percent tuberization, foliage senescence, average weight per tuber, and average tuber weight per plant from the harvest at 30, 60, and 90 days. Apart from earliness, the variety must be tolerant to pests and diseases and any environmental aberrations. Apart from earliness, the variety must be tolerant to pests and diseases and any environmental aberrations. The breeding methodology for earliness must therefore select early clones with resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses. This can be achieved by intercrossing selected clones to build a base population for earliness. After progress has been made in earliness, heat tolerance, resistance to other abiotic stresses, and resistance to X, Y, and PLRV viruses, bacterial wilt, early blight, and late blight should be introduced using resistant and adapted progenitors. Early tuber initiation. Understanding the mechanism of tuberization is important when devising a strategy to develop early maturing potato varieties. Early tuber initiation is a key trait to consider when developing early maturing varieties. Tuber initiation is a complex developmental process affected by meteorological, physical, and genetic factors. Meteorological factors include air and soil temperature, solar radiation, photoperiod, and soil moisture. Meteorological factors include air and soil temperature, solar radiation, photoperiod, and soil moisture. Of these factors, photoperiod and temperature have the greatest effect on tuberization in potatoes. Potatoes grown at the equator require short day photoperiods for the tuber formation. As photoperiods increases towards the CCP, tuberization becomes irregular, then retarded, and it's finally inhibited. CPP increases at high temperature. Increased photoperiod delays stolon and tuber initiation, reduces photosynthesis, causing small and inconsistent tubers, and finally reduces the number of tubers.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria (ARCN) coordinates the activities of research institutes and is responsible for supervision, regulation, coordination of research activities and programs of higher institutions in Nigeria. And Professor Hamidu Shaributu, since assumption as Executive Secretary of ARCN in April 2020, has solidified the transformation of agriculture in Nigeria through strategic and meaningful execution of research findings for improvement of the agricultural sector.
The rubber tree has two major outputs that are useful in the industrial sector as well as other uses. These include the white liquid substance tapped from the rubber tree, which is called latex, and the rubber seeds that are produced from the rubber trees. After the liquid is tapped from the rubber, it can be sold in its liquid form or processed into rubber sheet. To achieve standard of processing of rubber liquid into a more profitable form, the Rubber Research Institute of Nigeria has a rubber latex processing section.
Here is a pilot plant set up by the Rubber Research Institute to encourage, through demonstration, the value chain addition of our produce.
Okay.
Usually, when you tap rubber from the field, as I'm very, very sure you guys have seen earlier today, it is processed into raw materials that can be consumed by would-be manufacturers who are interested in using natural rubber as a base raw material.
Since then, Professor Shaributu has operated as visionary captain by restoring the council's glory with the first ever agricultural television and radio station in Nigeria, with well-equipped studios parading state-of-the-art equipment.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria also has a brand new electronic library to further promote research and visualizations of deep thoughts on agricultural development in Nigeria.
The museum, located in the Senator Abdullahi Adamu Center, is an agricultural museum saddled with the responsibility of keeping records of agricultural findings, discoveries, researches for continuity and history purposes.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria is wearing a new look under the stewardship of Professor Garba Hamidu Shaributu, who says, "Alone, I am nothing, but together, I am something." ARCN,
promoting agriculture. This is Agricultural Research Council of Nigerian Television. The program has been Back to Farm, where we'll look at growing early maturing stress-resistant potato. On behalf of the crew members who made it possible, my name is Joshua Ishaya. Thanking you for watching. Bye for now.